Hey, this is Kara.
And this is Ed.
And this is your day's dumpster fire.
So, how's it going, Sniffles?
Not bad. Except for the ever-running stream of snot coming out of my left nostril. Also, my dog is about to chew up my wallet. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Alright, here we go.
Pretty sure we can edit this out.
Alright, we saved it.
Your wallet?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And thankfully that your dog barked, because that gave me a good starting point where I can now delete the past 25 seconds.
Perfect. Now we know.
So yeah, it sounds like you've got a slight touch of I don't know, airborne AIDS or something.
That or cancer. We'll find out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because you spent the past 30 years of your life smoking from the age of being a baby all the way up to adulthood.
Yeah, not really. This is a lie. This is a lie. For the general public.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Yeah,
I'm an asthmatic.
I don't smoke. I just was born with the lungs of a 90-year-old chain smoker.
Yeah, I have asthma, but that's the whole reason I don't smoke. Anyway. Getting personal.
Anyways, so yeah, we've got a great episode today. I feel like we've kind of had to diverge a lot in the past 3 or 4 weeks, because keep in mind that Kara and I are still learning how to make a podcast, and as soon as we kind of got into rhythm of things, the holidays hit, and we had these grand plans of doing all sorts of stuff. And then January rolled around and we realized, oh crap, we don't know what we're doing. And so I think, and I think you could agree with me, Kara, like we really wanted to do today's episode on the Oregon Trail, where we kind of like look at things from the video game all the way to the actual real life stuff that went down. And yeah. I know I had some stuff pre-planned. I had a Thanksgiving Day bonus episode that didn't turn out because there was all sorts of weird digital glitches that made it sound like everybody was on crack. And then, yeah, family hit. So here we are, Oregon Trail.
Well, hopefully we're back. Oregon Trail.
Yeah, we're back.
Hot. I'm excited. This is probably going to be a 2-parter. We'll see how far we get today.
Yes. And then I'm excited for this because it is our first like multi-part.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that kind of throws the challenge on me a little bit now, because I got to create a multi-parter, because I now have to do a 3-parter.
Got to raise the bar.
You'll have to do a 4-parter. And then maybe in a couple of weeks' time, you and I are doing like 16-part episodes on the dumpster fire revolving around why cheese gets moldy.
Oh, I was going the opposite. I'm over here like the fall of Rome. Done. And you're thinking about cheese.
Well, actually, let me tell you about my cheese.
Wait. I suggest we wait on the cheese.
Well, no. This ties into my trash can fire. Like,
okay, all right.
It's legit here. It's
right. I'll allow it.
Yes, yeah, no. It's not cheese for me per se, but it's cheese. Well, let me explain. So for New Year's Eve, this is my trash can fire. You can't hear it because my ears are still ringing from it. But basically put, something you need to understand is that my wife's brothers are like rabbits. And they have so many children. And so for New Year's Eve, we all decided to go rent some house in St. George, Utah, which I love that up there. It's a great place. But it was all of my wife's brothers packed into one house. Granted, it's a good sized house, but I was surrounded by dozens of screaming nieces and nephews.
Why were they screaming though?
Because they're like ages 10 and under.
Oh, okay, that makes
So
sense.
yeah, the whole like I our room was in the basement level. What was kind of cool because like we had like this king bed suite type of thing, but as soon as you stepped out, there was a pool table. There was an Xbox with a giant, OLED TV, and then upstairs there was another OLED TV, and then there was people playing board games, and yeah, it was pure chaos. But that wasn't the dumpster fire. The real fire took place in what I was assigned to prepare for one of the meals for up there, because let's face it, I'm not going to brag, but my barbecue is pretty good, and I was asked to bring a pork shoulder, or smoked, like actually two of them, a Texas style and then a Kansas style pork shoulder. I was assigned to bring some shredded pork up there so that we could have some pulled pork sandwiches, and eat well. Well, here's the thing: when you smoke a pork shoulder, it takes like 12 to 16 hours to smoke one of those things. So what I wanted to do, I'm like, cool, I'm going to cold smoke some cheddar, provolone, Gouda. I was going to cold smoke a lot of this cheese, because the way my smoker is set up is I have a cold smoke box that takes basically the smoke from the main smoker, cools it down, and then runs it through this other chamber. And I put literally like $50 worth of cheese inside this cold smoke box. Now, when you cold smoke cheese, you're supposed to do it for really no more than 30 minutes at a time. Well, here's where I messed up. I threw the pork shoulders on.
Uh huh.
I threw the cheese on. This was late at night. This was like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, cool. I'm gonna smoke this stuff for 30, 40 minutes. I'll pull it off and then I'll go to bed. I put everything on and I went to bed. And I woke up at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
No, no.
And that cheese that was sitting in the cold smoker literally turned into the Chernobyl elephant's foot. Meaning,
Ew.
yeah, like Google it. It's fascinating because in Chernobyl, all that sand and uranium and everything melted into this basement, and it created like this super radioactive, weird elephant looking foot thingy. I opened up my cold smoker, and yeah, all that cheese had melted over the night, and it literally turned into a reenactment of Chernobyl.
Nice.
Yeah, lots of cheese, lots of really, really good cheese, expensive cheese. It was now a charred, goopy mess.
Eat it.
No,
Oh.
I closed the door to the cold smoker, pulled out the pork shoulders, and went on the trip and didn't look back.
So is it still in there?
No, thankfully, I have a Shar-Pei pit bull weird mixed dog named Pookie. I pulled the shelves out because all the shelves kind of like melted together. I pulled everything out and I stuck it on top of my other like charcoal pit Weber grill. I think you've seen it before.
Yeah.
I put everything on there, and then when I was at work, Pookie then proceeded to find all that cheese, and she cleaned off the grates and she ate everything.
I'm sure she had massive constipation, but good for her.
No, it was explosive diarrhea. So
Oh, the opposite.
yeah, no, we for this past week or so, we have been cleaning up horrific diarrhea. Our little Pookie likes to sleep with us, and then she'll climb off the bed, malt lick the carpet, malt lick the bathroom, malt lick everything, and then come back into her bed and pretend like nothing happened. And
Nice.
so that's been my week, is traveling with family and creating a Chernobyl level smoky cheesy disaster and getting malt licked at the same time.
Well, that sounds like a joy. And
Well, and
I'm
I think that's actually
glad
kind
to
of
hear
what
it.
you've got coming up, right? Traveling with
Kinda.
family.
Yeah, a lot of families traveling together.
I'm sure they didn't have elephant foot weird smoky cheese malt licky poopy disasters, but
No, but
I,
they had things like cholera and dysentery.
oh, why do you have to keep dissing Terry?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a dad joke for all of you. Whew.
So yeah, let's get into it. I hopefully I kind of set the stage for all the realistic problems that people had on the Oregon Trail, but I think you have a bit much more to contribute.
Yeah, all right. So, we're going to start with something a little bit more fun. I first played the Oregon Trail game the ripe old age of 8, if I remember correctly. I just remember dying all the time.
Was that
But
when you were playing that? Because I'm 10 years older than you, so when I was playing it, we were playing it on these old these Macintosh computers where it was like a black and white display.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
like literally all we did was just buy a bunch of bullets when you first started the game,
right.
and we could care less about our family, we care less about the clothes or the wagons or the oxen, and we just bought like thousands of bullets, and then we would shoot those stupid. They weren't even 8-bit like buffalo running across the screen; they were just squares.
Just like little
Uh,
dots.
Yeah, and our bullets were little squares. Was that what you had to play with, or at least did you have color at that time?
Yeah, so I had my family had like one of those old Gateway computers, desktop computers.
Oh,
Gateway,
yeah.
yeah, with the cow logo.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Dude, you're getting a gateway. No, wait. No, sorry. Dude, you're getting a Dell.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, this was before Dell bought Gateway. But yes,
yeah.
proceed.
Anyway, so we had the 2000 version. I think that's which one it was. So we did have color, and it was very pixelated still, so the graphics weren't very great, but it was in color, and they did look like bison, so that was nice. But a lot of it was still like text play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it'll give you a little story, and then you just press yes or no. Do
Yeah,
you want to
like, do you
cross the
ford
river?
this
Yes or
river?
no?
Do you ford the river? Do you suck the poison out of Susie's snake bite?
Yeah.
Or yeah, no, it's
Yep. So that's the one I had. And recently I downloaded one on my phone just to play it as an adult.
oh, wait, so
Um,
there's an adult version?
well, no, it's like the same game, but I wanted to play it like now that I'm an adult to see.
Okay.
Because I just remember I would get really frustrated with it as a kid because I'd always die before I got there. And I couldn't figure out why. And I just stopped playing. So when I was playing recently, like when I decided to do this episode, I played again. And the first thing I did was buy a bunch of bullets just to kill the bison. The second round, I actually tried to play as an adult, and I beat it. And I was very excited about it. It was a good moment for me.
Really? Well, like, what was the difference?
I actually tried, like, you know how they ask questions when your family gets dysentery or cholera or somebody gets ran over by a wheel or something. I was resting. I like took like 2 or 3 days of rest before I made the family move, and then that gave them a moment to heal, like to rest. So I figured it out how
In
you
other
win it.
words, patience
Yeah,
paid off more than who cares? Let's go shoot more buffalo.
yeah. And I also learned that even though you shoot a bunch of buffalo for your meat or whatever, you can only carry like half a buffalo bag. So it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Well, and I learned too. Like when we will look at the caravans going out west and stuff like that. I think it was a little later on. So I think the Oregon Trail really kind of picked up in 1840s. Yeah, I discovered that the huge portion when we start looking at the 1870s and 1880s. They would come out in these giant caravans after the Civil War, and one of the things that kind of stood out to me was that there was one covered wagon that had the most armed guards. This was hands down the most sacred wagon out of everything, and it turned out that was the wagon that contained the bacon. It was the wagon because that the salted pork products were the things that provided the electrolytes, it provided the salts, it provided everything to keep people alive. Whereas, wagons full of shoes or guns or whatever, it had a very, very minimalistic purpose. But being able to eat protein that was salted and whatnot and smoky is what would keep them alive.
That makes sense.
And then that, and I remember too, that's also led to the Donner Party, which I want to do an episode on that because that led to a very famous stretch of road from Reno going into Northern California called Donner's Pass.
Yeah, we'll probably chat about that on the second part.
Oh, good. Yeah, I have so many stories about Donner's Pass.
Yeah, so we can definitely chat about that.
So it's I think this is a good topic because I feel like a lot of adventures, a lot of people who were living in Missouri or Illinois or anywhere else on the more eastern side were like thinking, cool, we're gonna go on this Oregon Trail and reinvent ourselves. And they probably planned out everything. They probably tried to account for every single possible thing that would go wrong. And what happened when they stepped foot out of their house?
Oh, depending. Well, there's so many people who traveled it. Like,
yes,
you name a disaster that could happen to you while you're on the road in a covered wagon, it probably happened.
So let's get into it. Let's dive into the dumpster fire that we all know and love as the Oregon Trail, and then we got to make sure because a lot of our audiences probably are the same age as I. We need to make sure that we tie real life aspects of the Oregon Trail and what happened during those times to the video game.
That's the goal. All right. So for the real thing, it is roughly just under 2,200 miles. It's 2,170 miles from east to west. The Missouri River to valleys in Oregon. Yeah. So it runs from the Missouri River going into valleys in Oregon. And it runs from Independence, Missouri to Oregon City, Oregon. So if you look at a little map, you can see like the line of the trail. And after everything was said and done, it was used by about, the numbers are a little bit off because of things we'll talk about later. They're not really sure, but it's estimated to be about 400,000 settlers, farmers, miners, ranchers, and business owners, and also their families.
Now, was a lot of this, were a lot of these people basically traversing the distance from, like the beginning of the Louisiana Purchase going all the way up to the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, so that's kind of how it started, was with the Louisiana Purchase and the idea of westward expansion, and I got this. You can do it.
Is it Manifest Destiny?
Thank you so much. That's what it is. And the idea of Manifest Destiny, basically a big publicity stunt to get people moving west.
Well, yeah, and for those who may not know, Manifest Destiny was a program put in place in I would say the early 1800s, where it was like, hey, America is the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast, and leave us alone everywhere in between.
And they basically played the grass is greener on the other side card. You can have all this land for really cheap. There's gold that you can go look for. So basically the message that got across for people who are living in the East was cheap, easy land, and there's a lot of gold. It's like El Dorado over there in California.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would make sense. I mean, if you're cooped up in some eastern city and you really want to have more than just I don't know, a few hundred square feet of land, the idea of stretching out past the Mississippi River, where, hey guys, you just rope off whatever land you want and it's yours. And I feel like that's probably what really laid the foundation for the Midwest, because the Midwest is this massive food production part of the country, part of the world. But then, hey, when you get further out west, it's more like traveling into outer space. I feel like that's what these families were experiencing when they traveled more and more out west. When they start getting into Kansas and moving up into Colorado and stuff like that, I had to imagine it was a very alien landscape for them.
Yeah, for sure. And they were also talking about, fertile land. And at the time, there was a depression, recession type of situation going on in the Midwest. So that was also a driving force for all of these people. All right. So we're going to go way back in the time machine. And we're talking about our associate, Mr. Thomas Jefferson. So after the Louisiana Purchase, he basically wanted to know what is in this land that we just bought. And at the time, right after he purchased it, it was sandwiched. So Great Britain actually owned the northern part of Canada for a time. And before the Louisiana Purchase, Spain, correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, Spain
Yes.
owned the southern part, so it
Southern
was like a
and
weird
western
sandwich. Yeah, and there's like a weird sandwich situation going on.
Well, and then we also had the French who owned like Louisiana, and they went from like Mississippi, Louisiana, and they kind of went weird 45-degree angle, and like they cut through Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Washington, Oregon, and so that's part of the reason why a lot of those names changed. So you look at Louisiana, and like you'll see a lot of French names in there, but then as you start going up north and west, they became a lot more traditional names, like Washington and stuff like that. But then when you start getting into California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, that was all owned by Spain, and they were not going to hand over those states not until I think it was the 1850s, when that was the Spanish American War, where basically the generals and the colonels of the people who had fought in the Civil War, both North and South, they actually attacked Mexico, and they chased the armies all the way back to Mexico City, and then they said, "Hey, we're gonna buy all this land off of you," and then that's where we get the Southwest states.
Yeah.
A lot of politics. I shortened up like dissertations of history there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, America was sandwiched. Actually, I would actually argue more that it was the French that was sandwiched, because they had the Louisiana going all the way up to like Colorado and Montana, Wyoming,
That's
uh,
true.
all that stuff. Like they were the ones that were sandwiched, and this was also the same time that Napoleon was kind of getting his butt kicked in Waterloo, and things weren't going well for him. So America was able to buy that tract of land for pennies.
Yup. Very, very cheap. And basically Jefferson just wanted to know what was over there. What did he buy? Right? So
Well, and on top of that too, Jefferson, not to sidetrack the story a little bit, but Jefferson didn't think he was constitutionally allowed to buy that. That had to go to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court Chief Justice Marshall, very famous guy. There's so much that went in. I may actually do some stuff on that. I may do an episode on the Louisiana Purchase with like Lewis and Clark, because they're the ones who kind of charted all that land that the future Oregon Trail LARPers, I would say, or the live action role playing people who actually traveled the Oregon Trail, literally went through. But yes, there's useless background.
we're gonna chat about them for just a second. So Jefferson issued some instructions to Lewis when he first hired him, saying, "The object of your mission is to explore the Missouri River and such principal stream of it as, by its course and communication with the waters of the Pacific Ocean, whether the Columbia, Oregon, Colorado, and or other river, may offer the most direct and practical water communication across this continent for the purpose of commerce." So basically, not only did he want to explore the area, he wanted to have a more direct and quick way to have trade and economic, whatever it is, travel across the river.
Yeah, because he was looking for a route that went from basically the like Maine to Washington State. Like
Right.
they were looking for a river that would go all the way across.
Yes, they wanted a river to go all the way across, and then also he knew up there in that part of the country, a lot of fur traders and fur trappers were just making bank, so he wanted it on that as well.
Oh, yeah.
So this expedition gave us the first map or a road to the West Coast from the east. It lasted from 1804 to 1806. They found two passes going through the Rocky Mountain, Lemhi Pass and Lolo Pass. They found those two, and they stopped when they found them, like midway maybe, or a little bit in the beginning, and they came back because they were too hard. They were too difficult for the horses or whatever, so they went all this way. They were trying to go through the Rocky Mountains, but if you know the Rocky Mountains, that's not going to happen. So they turned back. And then on the way back, they found multiple rivers going east until they hit the Missouri, which was a lot easier. Still a little bit difficult for wagon travel, but it was a lot easier than going through the Rockies, of course. The routes that they found were later used for the Oregon Trail, even when easier routes were discovered by fur traders. This is probably just because it was the most established. They're reliable for the people who are going west, as opposed to fur traders. So it's like taking advice from explorers and people you trust over like these traders who are probably smelly and they're fat. Who knows? Anyway.
Well, like I mean, we haven't come into the era of the Rangers yet, have we?
No, we're about to hit on fur trading.
Well, yeah, no, there was the fur traders, but there was also the Rangers, and these are the people that were hired to escort people, basically from the Midwest to the east, or I'm sorry, to the west.
Yeah, I haven't really touched on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That may be a little later. That may be more into the like the 1870s kind of a thing.
Yeah, that doesn't happen until a bit later. Like, we're not gonna hit that, I don't think, yet.
Okay.
So the trail was first established by fur traders and trappers it's a long period, from about 1811-ish to about 1840, and it was only passable on foot or on horseback. So wagons for that time period were still like a no-go. The traders were based in the Pacific Northwest, and they were also searching for like a safer place to trade. So they had a similar objective to Thomas Jefferson, but they're going the opposite direction.
Okay.
Right? So the routes were created by a really tried and true method. Are you ready for it? This is the basis of our entire show. Here we go. The routes for the Oregon Trail were created with the trial and error method. Oh, yeah. My favorite.
This is where we start out, just we'll pick a path and see what happens. When that doesn't work, we all die, and then we send somebody else out.
Yeah, we'll wing it, and we'll try again. So a lot of routes were way too difficult, even for horseback, especially going through the mountains and rough terrain. So if you can just imagine these people trying to go through like Donner's Pass or go through the Rocky Mountains on horseback, let alone a wagon. There's no way. Well, don't forget
people that didn't even have beasts of burden. There was people that they had hand carts.
Yeah.
So like we're talking like 1830s, 1840s. There was a lot of people who were trying to get out west, and they literally were taking rotations, pulling hand carts with all their belongings into one cart, hoping for the best.
Yeah, so their plan was to go west without a set trail and lug this cart around for miles and miles. And then they finally come from Missouri or wherever they're coming from, and they hit the Rocky Mountains, which is quite the distance. I could probably look it up real quick. On foot. Then they get to the Rocky Mountains, and then they realize, ah, crap. So that's how Colorado was settled. No, I'm just kidding. A lot of times, too, well, not a lot of times, I'd say average, sometimes men would have no choice but to leave all of their stuff behind to move forward or to get to safety. So a lot of times they get stuck somewhere. Like,
Jeez.
they'd climb up some hill or mountain or whatever, and then they'd realize in order to get down, they'd have to leave all of their stuff or their goods and supplies. So all of their food, all of their clothing, weapons, whatever it is that they can't bring down, they just have to leave it.
When I was in St. George, which is like southwestern Utah, we were driving up to Cedar City, and we came across a lot of actually kind of historic spots. What we're talking about, like the Mormon Trail and stuff like that for people coming from Nauvoo, Illinois, and all that. And one of the things I noticed that there were some really intimidating canyons, and we were driving down the scenic road, and it was beautiful. But then it also occurred to me, dude, if you have a horse and a covered wagon, there is no way you're getting through this.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a hand cart, there is no way getting around this. Like, this stuff was, these canyons and these mountains are like Lord of the Rings proportions. And we're talking like, like Saruman down the south, like calling in the bad weather and the giants and whatnot, destroying everything. I have no idea what I would do if I was, toting my wife and my two daughters with me in a handcart, and I came across these miles long canyons that are thousands of feet deep. I have no idea what you would do.
Yeah, man. Like, a lot of people would just give up and just, we need to find somewhere safe or settle. Like,
hey, you know what? We're gonna found Salt Lake. we're gonna found Spanish Fork. We're gonna found Denver.
Yeah.
Like, they're just gonna be like, screw this. This is the farthest we're gonna go. But I could only imagine, like, for you and I to see these things, these landscapes are just absolutely stunningly beautiful. But to these people coming out west, that was probably the beginning of their dumpster fire, because how do you get a wagon through this crap?
Yeah, there isn't really a way until, like, those lucky few who found the safe way, which eventually did become the Oregon Trail.
Is that because they went more north and then west?
I think it's because they followed the rivers a little bit more closely.
Okay.
So instead of trying to take shortcuts, they followed the river.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry, my dogs are being annoying. So by trial and error and overland travel, American missionaries and early settlers began arriving in Oregon in the 1820s. So think about it. It was first established by fur traders in 1811-ish, and it wasn't until the 1820s that people started arriving in Oregon to settle. The established British fur traders were a little bit frustrated. They wanted to discourage the settlement because oh my goodness. You hear this? He doesn't like it either.
This is pure content.
Yeah,
it's great.
Good. My husband's trying to sleep. Hold on. Okay. Here we go.
Did you just kick him out?
No, I just picked him up.
Oh, okay. Nice thing is their barks made some really good time indicators, so I know what to look for when I'm editing.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Although I may just leave him in, because
I mean, you could.
I can't get rid of your sniffles. So yeah, let's just keep it a Coke-filled episode.
Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, where did I leave off? All right, so the established British fur traders that were up there already, they didn't want people to settle in the area because it was starting to interfere with the fur trading. So, I mean, the safe trails that the trappers were using at the time and the traders were using are starting to get crowded, which slows them down. And then they miss dates of meeting with people. They miss, making it on time for the winter or before winter or what have you. It's starting to cause a little bit of problem with the trade. Despite this, the chief factor at Fort Vancouver, John McLaughlin, gave substantial help, including employment, until they could get established. So John McLaughlin, if you read up on him, he's actually a really interesting character. He he was one of the first to settle, and I think he was a fur trapper. Don't take my word for it. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I read on him. He actually took in as many settlers as he possibly could, and he would provide employment and he would help them get established, build farms, whatever it was. So he's actually a really big figure in Oregon people. What's up? And yeah, so if you want to do some more research on John McLaughlin, it's actually a pretty interesting read, and he is highly respected in that area of the country. All right, so by 1836, the trail was converted into a wagon trail. So there was enough traffic on the trail to where it was starting to get easier to build roads for wagons to start coming through. And by that time, annual improvements were made with bridges and cutoffs and ferries and better roads that made the trip faster and safer for average Americans. So by the early 40s, the number of people started to grow immensely. It went from just a few traders here and there to thousands and thousands of people in giant caravans. By the early 1840s, thousands of American soldiers arrived, and soon they greatly outnumbered the British settlers in Oregon. McLaughlin, here he is again, he was giving financial aid, assistance, he gave medical care, shelter, food, supplies. So even like the large influx of all of these people, he was still doing whatever he could to help. He, like I just said, would later be hailed as the father of Oregon. That's what they call him.
So this McLaughlin guy, like he was what we would probably consider an American at that time.
Yeah.
And so like literally all he was doing, he was a guy who had a vision that said, hey, if we play our cards right, we can make a city called Vancouver, and we can make a city called Seattle and Spokane and Medford, and he had this grand vision of creating the Pacific Northwest, and his main mindset was to just do whatever he could to help people get up there.
More like Oregon. I'm bringing him up right now. Laughlin, if I can spell his name right. Even though it's right in front of me. Not the guitar player. I just want to see where he was at the time. Oregon City. It was where his general store was. Fort Vancouver, Father of Oregon, assisting the American cause in the Oregon country. So that area, Oregon City, Vancouver.
Okay, so yeah, we're up
Bay.
there like around Eugene, which is kind of like the midpoint down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's a big name up there. Super interesting dude. If you ever want to read about him, apparently really giving. Helping out the people. But yeah, if you take anything out of this part of the episode, John McLaughlin, look him up. All right. Where are we? Okay, so at around this time, the late 1830s, early 40s, missionaries also began to move west. They were hoping to spread Christianity or their particular religious belief to the Native American tribes. And also, which I thought was very interesting, they wanted to spread their religions to the trader and trapper population.
Probably because they could convert them and then collect a tithe off of their production.
Most likely, economically, that would make a lot of sense. So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. The Native American tribes thing, that's common knowledge, but the trader-trapper population, that was news to me. Missionaries were some of the first people to use the trail, beginning with a man named Marcus Whitman. The beginning of the trail was smooth until the family began to route through the Rocky Mountains, just like everybody else, and they eventually used fur trappers as assistants or as guides to help them through that particular area. So everything was great. They were like, "This is going to be amazing. The trail's going to be awesome." And then they hit the Rocky Mountains, and they're like, "Oh."
How do we get these carts and wagons over the I-80?
Exactly. Eventually, they came across some fur trappers, and the trappers were able to guide them through safely. Whitman's wife, Narcissa, her name was the first woman to take the trail, which she's also a very interesting character. If you ever want to read up on her, she kept a diary during their travels, which was later published, and it's one of the most commonly used primary sources when you're studying about what life was like on the trail. So she kept a diary of how her life was when she was on the trail, and she was talking about things they saw. Um, she was talking about like her personal life. I think, if I remember correctly, she was excited to go on this trip. And then there were other women later on who, and this is a whole other conversation, but there were other women who didn't want to go. They felt like their life was established. They got it good here, aristocratically, they're fine. Who needs the adventure?
Well,
But
it would make sense. I
yeah,
mean, it would be no different than your husband or me going to my wife, and where we have, we have homes, we're comfortable, we have, careers, we have all the resources we need, and then like let's pick up and go to Antarctica.
pretty much.
Or like pick up and go to the moon. Like they literally had no idea what was ahead of them other than hope that things would be better, when in reality, to a lot of these women, a lot of these mothers and wives, things were fine. Was it great? No, but it was fine. Like, we can
Yeah.
figure this out. We don't need to pack up and go to some foreign land.
Yeah, pretty much. But there were also women who were super excited about it. Narcissa was bought in. She was all about it. She was, I'm going to help you, spread the religion. We're going to go west. It's going to be great. Blah, blah, blah. She got pregnant while she was on the trail,
Oh,
if I remember correctly. It's actually a really interesting read. If you could ever find the diary, you can find it online. It's not that hard to find. It's
yeah.
actually really cool.
I could only imagine what being pregnant on the Oregon Trail would be like.
Imagine having birth in like a covered wagon that's bumpy. Oh God, it sounds horrible.
I noticed. I was kind of looking at some stuff here. Like, there's like the Whitman Mission. There's the Fort Nez Perce in Washington that came from the Whitman Mission.
Yeah, like they're a big deal.
And then I'm also discovering some really kind of common names, because I'm a market manager for the Pacific Northwest. I'm hearing Cascade Mountains. These are all things that kind of stemmed from the Whitman Mission. Cascade Mountains, Mount Hood, Columbia River Gorge, Willamette Valley, Santiam Wagon Road. We all know a customer in southern Oregon that dealt with a lot of German-named lumber.
Yeah, I know them.
Yeah, it's interesting how all that's tied together.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Anyway, sorry, reading through my notes. Okay, in 1841, so just as the trail's starting to pick up, a small group of 70 pioneers left Independence, Missouri. They followed a route made by the fur traders, which took them west along the Platte River through the Rocky Mountains, using the South Pass in Wyoming and then northwest to the Columbia River. So that's how they got through the Rocky Mountains, is they went south into Wyoming and then they moved north to follow the Columbia River. In 1842, a slightly larger group of 100 pioneers left on the same trail. Then the next year, so 43, that number jumped to 1,000. So there was a slight increase one year, and then the next year it went tenfold. The influx was what we talked about earlier. It was caused by a depression in the Midwest, and then also the propaganda of manifest destiny, and the West has all this fertile land and will give it to you and all this stuff. In 1843, the organic laws of Oregon were drafted and put into place. It's basically an act that promised married settlers 640 acres of land and single settlers 320 for free. It wasn't a
Really?
federal law. It was a state one, but the government did put it into law in 1850, with expiring in 1854 under the Donation Land Act. So,
what state was this in?
Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was a state law, and then the federal government put into place like a law for 4 years in which settlers can go to Oregon and get free land.
Gotcha. Well,
And it was a lot of land, 640 acres if you're
yeah.
married, 320 if you're single. That is a
Yeah,
lot of land.
I have a 20-foot by 15-foot backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's full of dog poop. So, but I was looking because I was kind of like tracking the map along here, and I noticed that a lot of the places that you were talking about getting up there. So we're talking about Boise and Burley, and Montpelier, Idaho. All this followed Interstate 84 and Interstate 86 through Pocatello, which all stems from, and a lot of listeners probably would know, that all stems from the I-80. And the I-80 is that road that goes from Denver and it goes all the way into Northern California, and it cuts through Wyoming and whatnot, and Idaho, and, and goes through Nevada and then into California. That is, even when you're in a car, that is a treacherous road because of the winds and the weather and the blizzards and all that stuff. So we're talking about a bunch of people that were trying to get up into Oregon by taking some of the most treacherous paths known to America, even for semi-truckers and transportation specialists in this country.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I bet you this is a guess, so don't take my word for it. I can tell you on the next. So by the next episode, what I want to do is I want to see if there's a highway or a road that follows the Oregon Trail. I bet you there is.
Oh, yeah.
Like a historical road.
There's got to be.
Yeah. So by next episode, I will find that for you, and I will tell you what it is, and we're going to Google Maps it together, like the historical nerds we are.
So then everybody can drive down that path and be like, what were they complaining about? This isn't that bad.
Then you realize you're on a paved road with asphalt in a motorized vehicle.
Yeah, air-conditioned car, and you're just fine. But then you're going to be like, these people, they were pansies. They didn't know how to travel.
Yeah, wait till we get into the nitty-gritty here. We're just glossing over the basics, establishment, and whatever. Anyway, okay, so, all right, we're hitting on an hour. Okay, so this is actually perfect. All right, so in 1843, we talked about the 1,000 people. That is called the Great Emigration. So 1843, 1,000 men, women, and children. They all mostly came out of a small town of Missouri in Elm Grove, Missouri. The train of wagons comprised of more than 100 wagons, 5,000 oxen and cattle behind that. It was led by Dr. Elijah White. He was a Presbyterian missionary and guide for this train of people. After this great emigration event, traveling on a trail became an annual practice. So by 1845, these 1,000 people turned into 3,000 people. So the further we get into this trail, the more established it continues to be. The number of people and wagons just rises and rises and rises. Pretty interesting. Now, what ended it, since we're coming up on our time here, we'll get into the nitty-gritty in part 2. What ended it was the establishment of the Union Pacific Railroad and the Intercontinental Railroad. The Pacific Railroad started in 1865, and it was the westernmost point of the United States accessible by rail. So that brought all these people over, and then it was met. Where did it meet? At St. Joseph? Where's St. Joseph? Ed, cut this part. I should know what I'm talking about.
Well, I guess my thing is like, so these early folks that went out, right? They had these grand plans of finding gold, finding land, finding furs, or farming or whatever. What were they facing? Because I feel like when we talk about, oh yeah, there's 1,000 people that set out, right? There's 1,000 people that decided to just pack up everything and just start heading out west. How was that a dumpster fire? Like, what went wrong?
Yeah, so it sounds like it all worked out well, right? Like, more and more people are using it. The trail is becoming more established, all this stuff. Even though it sounds like it was super successful, it's actually really horrible. So this particular dumpster fire was like a bunch of little trash can fires. And there were so many little trash can fires that they turned into a bunch of little dumpster fires. And then a bunch of little dumpster fires kind of turned into a giant tire fire. And then it went back in reverse. So like the tire fire then kind of went into a dumpster fire, and then the dumpster fire went into a tire fire. It's just like a whole bunch of fires that it starts to hurt your brain a little bit. And the reason for that is just because there were so many people traveling. There were just so many dumpster fires happening during all these travels. And I really want
give me some examples. Like, I mean, were we talking about disease? Are we talking about
we'll get there. That's the fun part. That's the fun part. That's part 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
gotcha.
I'm gonna save that fun part for next episode.
So what you have in this episode is a bunch of trash bags full of trash, and you have an empty dumpster, and then you have like a flamethrower.
I have it ready.
You're just outlining those 3 things, and then the next episode you're going to put all that together and see what happens.
I'm going to set it all on fire. That's exactly what I'm doing. So what I'm doing right now for all of you lovely listeners is I am outlining the basic idea of what the Oregon Trail was. You know, the stuff you would learn in school, because you need the context where we're going next. So before we get into the fun stuff, I will just kind of give you an idea, after everything was settled, of equipment that people needed and things like that. So just think about this. At the height, 4,000 people traveling in a matter of a few months, just before winter, if I remember, or just after winter.
Ooh.
I promise I will do more weeding this week. So the equipment used, thousands and thousands: oxen, mules, and horses.
Did I just hear a cow in the background?
No, that's my dog. And he's really tiny, so he can't be pulling any covered wagons for us, unfortunately.
All I heard was something moo, and it turns out that you have like a 10-pound cow in your office.
Yeah, in the right tank. All right. So, oxen, mules, and horses. Oxen were the most popular just because they were the most sturdy, but they were also the slowest. And then after that, there were 3 wagons for the most part used. And I'm sorry if I mispronounce this. I can read, I promise. This Conestoga wagon, covered wagons, and Studebakers.
Yep.
Those were the most common 3 types.
That turned into a very famous car in the early 1900s, the Studebaker.
Yes, actually, you're right. And if you Google all 3 of these, you can see the differences. It's really cool.
Yep.
And you can see them in different museums and all that stuff. When people think of the Oregon Trail, they most likely will think of the Conestoga wagon. If you take a quick second to Google it.
It has like the tall sides, rounded top, canvas covered.
Yep.
Pulled by a oxen that always got washed away whenever you forded a river.
Yeah, exactly. And then the wheel would break or something, or the yoke would break.
Yeah. And it would break and crush carry.
That's exactly it. Studebaker is similar, but it's smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Much smaller, probably pulled by a horse or mules.
And it was designed to transport people.
Yeah.
Hence the Studebaker car that was popular.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have covered wagons, which is another one that you'll probably think of when you think of the Oregon Trail. Fun fact, a lot of people did not ride in the wagons. They were so uncomfortable that they were mostly used to haul goods and supplies, or apparently pregnant women.
Apparently pregnant women?
They slept in the wagons, but they didn't often ride in the wagons, so they would walk next to the wagons, or they would ride on their horses.
I could see that.
Wagons.
I mean,
yeah, because
it's not like these things had like these things didn't have a suspension system until the 1870s, 1880s. So
if that, they were all wood. There was no suspension, and these trails that they're on, they're rocky, they're rough, muddy and dirty and gross. So you could just imagine the whole time.
And then you also have to imagine too, like I don't know if anybody in the audience knows somebody or has the last name of Wheelwright. I actually had some students, or I had a student, I should say, whose last name was Wheelwright, and a that name actually stemmed from people who were descendants of blacksmiths, and their jobs were to fix wheels on wagons. And so they were recruited, they were paid often fairly decent money to come along, because these wagons, it's not like, hey, if you blow a tire on a Civic or a Corolla or whatever, you just pull out your spare tire and you bolt it on and you're good to go. But a wheelwright had to know how to be a blacksmith as well as a carpenter, and their weight was worth more than gold in at this time.
Oh yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah,
Um,
and so like there was families of them, and they would change their name from, say, like Smith or Johnson or whatever. Once they learned this profession, they would change their name to Wheelwright so that they can market it almost like an ambulance chaser lawyer. Hey, Better Call Saul. Um, they would change their names so that they could market it as somebody who was absolutely indispensable. But I think that was more towards the 1860s, maybe. But yeah, you look at the professions that stemmed from this, especially in the early days. Yeah, like one I know from the Mormon side of things, there you look at Brigham Young. Okay, Brigham Young in the 1830s, he helped establish Nauvoo, and then when the mob came in, they raided Nauvoo and they chased out the Mormons, and then they chased them out to basically, well, I mean, they chased him out to almost Denver, and then from there, the Mormons were like, "Well, we're in Mexico, so we're just going to go to this. We're just going to go as far as we can." And you look at, say, Brigham Young, and what did he learn? He was a carpenter in Nauvoo, and if you go into his house, you'll see where the archways in his house, he or the entryways, the he hand painted the wood grain using wood stains and stuff. He hand painted the wood grain, and when he actually got out to what would become Salt Lake City, and they built the tabernacle and stuff like that, if you look at some of the pews, the original Mormon tabernacle, you can see in the back rows where the wood was kind of plain, he hand painted in the wood grain. And so it's fascinating, because when we look at this Oregon Trail, we look at the people who are expanding out west. It's a very unique set of skill sets that came out, right? When we say like like we were talking about doing the podcast episode on Thanksgiving, like the origins of Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Uh, One of the things that I was researching was that, hey, these Puritans, yeah, you had a farmer, you had a rancher, you had a carpenter, and you had a blacksmith, and that was it. That like every group that came over to America, that's what you had to have to survive. But then when we look at the Oregon Trail here, and we start looking at the people who were coming out west, suddenly you had a lot of hybridized professions. You had masons, you had carpenters with advanced knowledge, you had blacksmiths with advanced knowledge, you had wheelwrights, you had engineers, you had musicians. Like basically the things that would create a high society was moving out west, and literally all they had to do was survive. And I don't think a lot of them survived.
no, not when you compound it with all the fun stuff we're going to talk about next week.
The fun stuff like cholera and
like diseases and how they spread. um, Thunder and lightning storms with freak accidents there. And,
really, that killed a lot of people.
not a lot of people, but it's noteworthy. It's enough people to make it into historical articles.
Really? Oh, because it probably got caught in like flash floods and stuff like that.
That was some of it. There were a couple of accounts where people got struck by lightning.
Okay. In other words, these were people that God hated and said, go away.
Something, but I'm excited to talk about those people. Not to make fun of them. I respect to the dead, but also it's kind of a freak accident.
I gotta ask, where does Jebediah come in?
I think he was a fur trapper.
Okay.
Yeah. Jebediah, we have a Jebediah, guys. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, because I think we brought that up on our bread episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where there was a Jebediah, because anybody in American history that's a Jebediah needs a shout out.
Yeah, I think he died.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming he died. It's 2023. If he's still alive, holy cow!
Good for him, but no, he's yeah. But I think he died.
He long died before his prime.
No, I think it was that he died in a Native American attack.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to talk about all that fun stuff. I'm excited about it. Mostly excited to talk about the disease, which is something everybody thinks about, and we can loop it back to our favorite game.
Okay.
For now, though, what I'm going to leave you with is everything we talked about today. I know it sounded like a history lesson, but I promise it'll be worth it next week. We talked a lot about successes of the Oregon Trail, and we talked a lot about just the sheer numbers of people going through the Oregon Trail and establishment and some politics here and there. But I promise next week we're going to set everything on fire.
But you promised that we're going to relate as much stuff to the game as possible.
Of course, guys, my name on the software we're using is Dysentery. That's how excited I am to use it.
I'll take a screenshot of it.
Yeah, screenshot it and add it to the show notes right underneath all of these sources.
Yeah,
underneath Britannica.com, it's like Dysentery. Perfect.
Yeah, we've got Edward and Dysentery.
So I promise all of this information is relevant, and we're just gonna set it on fire. So we're gonna leave you. I'm gonna leave you there. We're just gonna leave it there, and then next week we're going to talk about dysentery and cholera and scurvy, and we're going to talk about freak lightning accidents, and we're going to talk about a little girl who got poisoned, and we're going to talk about how wagons are really expensive, but at the same time they break, which doesn't make any sense. And we're going to talk about how people were buried in the middle of the road, and we're going to talk about how kids' chores while they were walking was to pick up buffalo poop. We're going to talk about all that fun stuff, and I'm so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, we may have to record that sooner than next week.
We're going to record it Saturday, Sunday. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure out scheduling.
Yeah, we got to record it this weekend. We got to keep it up like our friends at Morbid, where they slam out a multi-part series in like 3 days.
Okay, friends at Morbid, share your secrets, because I don't know how you do that, and I really want to know.
Yeah.
Call us.
Yeah, let's collab.
Yeah, we'll shoot you an email.
Yeah, we'll have our people contact your people, i.e. Kara and I will reach out to you.
Much love, XOXO.
Yeah. I actually just got done listening to the Yorkshire Ripper.
Oh, I listened to that one not too long ago, too.
Oh, my God.
Fantastic.
13 people dead with, like, another 5 injured. Oh, God.
If you look at the guy, he looks like a terrible magazine model.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really funny, but also horrifying at the same time.
Yeah, what was his name? Peter Sutcliffe or...
Peter Sutcliffe, that sounds right.
What a douche canoe.
Dude, for real.
God. But yeah, anyways, Ash, Elena, reach out.
Hit us up. Again, all the X's and O's. Yeah, so we will...
Yeah, we'll record this on the weekend.
Yeah.
I will try to find time in adult life to edit this stuff.
Yeah.
And until then, keep it a hot mess.
Yep, we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.